He had set his table up an hour before sunset. His suit was immaculate for someone who lived out of his car, and Lucifer knew it was the key to his operation. A lot of these people who hawked did so in clothes that made them look like bums. Lucifer, however, was a born salesman, and he knew that if he couldn't buy you, then you wouldn't buy from him. Lucifer Marvvelous Jones had the unfortunate luck to be the child of Cassie Koppel, a lifetime resident of Forest View Asylum. When the 42-year-old woman had come up pregnant, the questions of patronage had immediately arisen. Cassie said, and stuck with her story for the rest of her life, that Lucifer himself had visited her and begot her with his offspring. She held the death within her that was warned about in Revelations, and she would bring it into this world no matter what they thought. The staff was pretty sure that it had been Charles Danver, an orderly who had recently been fired for inappropriate relations with residents. But when Lucifer had been born, his skin was the color of coal, and it led to more questions than answers. The state took him away not long after they wrestled him from his mother, and thus Lucifer Marvvelous Jones entered the system, a system that was kinder to him than most. Lucifer, despite his name and his humble beginnings, was possessed of an infectious smile and an unshakable positivity that others liked. He was adopted at 4 and lived with a middle-class family until his grades and impressive IQ were made note of by a local philanthropist who adopted him again and gave him a peerless education. Lucifer's grades ensured him a place at any college he wanted, and his backers' financial stability ensured that wherever he went, it would be the best. He had a degree in business before 25. The world prepared for him to open his own Fortune 500 company any day now. He surprised them further by taking up politics and philosophy, and his benefactor hoped that maybe he'd go into politics himself. He learned all he could about the human condition, studied psychology and human nature, and then surprised them all one final time by disappearing without a trace. He took some clothes and a bag, his best suit and shoes, left in his car one day with no intention of returning. That had been nearly a decade ago, but Lucifer had never stopped learning. He had simply changed classrooms. "Hey there, friend," he called to a man in a suit almost as nice as his. "Come have a chat for a minute. I got something I'd like to show you." The man would have been a hard mark for anyone else, but not for Lucifer. He was a businessman, a middle management type who clearly had dreams of rising, and normally he would have no more stopped to talk to someone on the sidewalk than he would have taken out his wallet and left it on the lamppost. He was on his phone, but Lucifer had no doubt that he had heard him. He never let doubt enter his mind, and when the man turned, he hooked him with his winning smile and lured him in. The man looked surprised to be standing before the suited man's card table, but the hawker wasn't. He was right where he wanted him, and that was good. "Your case," Lucifer said, the man looking down at his battered Samsonite briefcase. "It's unbecoming of a man in your position." The businessman looked confused. "What's wrong with it?" "Oh, nothing. For someone who doesn't want to rise higher than middle management, that is. But you," he said the last words like he meant to roll in it, "you have big dreams. You can't hold papers for dreams as big as yours in a case like that." Lucifer reached beneath the table and produced something he'd been holding just for this man. It was a gorgeous leather attaché case with golden buckles and a polished brass handle, the kind of case the boss carried so that everyone knew who he was. The man's eyes lit up when he saw it, but Lucifer pulled it back out of reach. "Not before we've talked price, my friend." The man looked at him for a moment like he meant to fight him, but he wouldn't be the first to try. It wouldn't do him any better than it had done the others either. "The price Lucifer said, his voice dropping a little, "is something small. Give me what you have in your wallet for starters. I know it isn't much, but the second part is the big ask." The man nodded, shakily fishing his wallet out before handing Lucifer the $300 inside. Lucifer produced a gym bag then, placing it on the table gingerly. "Take this bag to 2369 Hammerlock Plaza. Leave it in the lobby, and leave without being seen. If you're seen, I'll know and come to get the case back. Do this, and the case will be yours." The man looked enraptured as he took the bag and case, nodding furiously before heading up the sidewalk with a new spring in his step. "That was deftly done," said someone from behind him. "You have a definite talent, my friend." Lucifer didn't jump, didn't tense, but it was the first time in a while that someone had snuck up on him. He turned his head a little as he saw the man in the coal-black suit, his hands on the end of a cane and his rump on the bench where Lucifer had taken the case from. "I should hope so, sir. I've been perfecting my art for years," Lucifer said. "Longer than you might suspect, I think," the man said, but Lucifer didn't let it affect him. He turned back to the crowd, angry that he had almost missed the woman as she came walking past. He'd been planning this for weeks, and he wasn't about to miss his chance. "'Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his smile attached when she turned with a nearly rehearsed swivel. "I believe I have something that you might be looking for." She walked over dreamily, and when he pulled out the porcelain figure from beneath the table, she shuddered in surprise. How did you know?" she said, reaching for it with a shaky hand. He covered it, though, with his big dark one, smiling disarmingly as he set the hook. "I have an eye for precious things, and people who share a love of fine things. All I ask," he said as he produced a letter, "is that you drop this into a mailbox for me. Somewhere near your work should do it, and you can take your prize with you." She snatched the letter, nodding as she took the figurine and walked briskly away. "Did you need something, friend?" Lucifer asked, without looking at the man. "I don't believe I've seen a face as distinct as yours before." The man had a smile that belonged in a funhouse, but Lucifer couldn't deny that he was charming and had a certain magnetism to him. "Oh, it isn't what you can do for me," the man said. "It's more what I can do for you. A man of your talent could—" "Hold that thought," Lucifer said, whistling to a high school girl as she came walking past. Her eyes traveled from her phone for the first time in hours, and she came over to the hawker willingly enough. When he pulled out the bag, the look told him that she would have done all manner of degrading things to have it. Lucifer, however, needed no such act. "Take this letter to the owner of the deli on 3rd and Foreman. Tell him 7 o'clock, and don't be late. Bring the number 3 to the house we discussed. Do this, or this bag will be back in my possession by nightfall. Understand?" She nodded, thanking him again and again before walking away in a hurry. "Now then," Lucifer said, "you were saying." "As I was saying, your talents are of interest to us. We would like to purchase them for our company so that they can be utilized by our clients." "How interesting," Lucifer commented. "Does that line often work on people?" The man looked taken aback by his statement. "Excuse me?" "Oh, no disrespect, but I suspect that you're used to doing business with desperate individuals who value money a bit too much. The wording of your statement leads them to believe you're offering them work or perhaps a trade. They don't realize their mistake until the deal is struck, then must lament at leisure what they have lost. Am I close?" The man wanted to be angry, Lucifer could tell, but there was a level of curiosity to the old devil that intrigued him as much as it intrigued him. "But not you?" he asked, switching his grin for something a little more sardonic. "You're too great a salesman to be huckstered by my obvious naivete." Lucifer laughed. "You are many things, sir, but I don't believe that naive is one of them. No, you're someone whose empire makes mine look like a sandcastle to a king. I admit, I doubt I am as skilled a liar as you are, nor do I have as much experience rooking the sheep as Richard T. Sereph, but I'm no layman, and I can smell a predator when it enters my territory." The man's eyes gave away his surprise at being named, but his smile was no less merry. "Very well met, Lucifer Marvvelous Jones. It seems that you have me at a disadvantage, something that doesn't often happen in my line of work." Lucifer steepled his fingers, letting the crowd pass behind him as the real battle of wills happened right here on his busy street corner. This was the single greatest deal of the man's life, and he knew it had the potential to go bad with only a single misstep. Lucifer had made worse deals, however, and was always willing to bet on his abilities. Besides, he'd come prepared for this meeting. "So, let me offer you a counter deal. I will not sell you my talent. It's far too valuable to sell, and I suspect that you don't want to buy it for just anyone either. I suspect that you want to monopolize my talent and use it to further your own endeavors. Am I correct in assuming as much?" Mr. Sereph nodded, looking genuinely impressed with the young man's assessment of him. Impressive, but I should have suspected nothing less from the shadow broker of East Los Angeles. "And yet, you thought that I'd sell my talent like someone looking for a fix," he said, putting his old tone back on with a laugh, showing that he wasn't insulted, but only disappointed. Mr. Sereph shrugged. "I had to try. I haven't come up against one of your kind who is such a match for me in a long time, and are unlikely to for quite some time," Lucifer admonished. "I am, after all, the Antichrist, if you believe my mother." Mr. Sereph's laugh was rich and terrible, and many of the people walking by shuddered, though they knew not why. I can assure you, Mr. Jones, you are not. That one has not yet been born, and hopefully will not be for many generations yet." "In that case," said Mr. Jones, "I propose a trade." Mr. Sereph raised an eyebrow at him. "A trade, you say?" "Never fear, sir. It's a trade that's mutually beneficial for both of us." "I'm all ears," said Mr. Sereph, smiling as he folded his hands in his lap. Here it was, his one chance. Lucifer hoped he was up to the challenge. "I propose that you hire me, and we further each other's objectives." Whatever Mr. Sereph had been expecting, his face showed Lucifer that a job proposition wasn't it. "A job! A job! You want to work for me!" It was Lucifer's turn to smile. "Don't act so surprised. Libra's talent is a very lucrative venture, but it's a venture that requires talent. You are one person," he hedged, not wanting to insult him, but not wanting to undersell him either. "And you've been the sole representative of Inquisitions for quite some time. Why not let me help? I do have a knack for talking people into things, as well as convincing them that I can provide them with what they want." Mr. Sereph looked shocked, gobsmacked even, and when he leaned forward, Lucifer thought it might be the first time he'd been taken off guard in a long time. "Well, goodness, I haven't had to do anything like an interview in so long. I don't guess you have a resume I can look over, do you?" Lucifer thought about it for a moment. "I may, actually. Do you recall my transactions this morning?" Mr. Sereph nodded, ticking off items on his finger. "You sold a gaudy briefcase, a tacky figurine, and an overpriced purse." Lucifer smiled, but it was hard to keep the derision off his face. "Correct, though inaccurate and a little insulting. I sold a Lavar Manuel attaché case to a businessman who's hoping to impress his boss. In exchange, he gave me $300 and, more importantly, will drop off a duffel bag in the lobby of a building that holds a certain law firm. The woman traded a rare Hummel figurine for the promise that she will drop a letter in a mailbox for me. The letter contains evidence that the owner of Pax & Sons law office has been cheating on his wife with a mistress. Lastly, I traded a Lou Bodwin signature handbag for the promise of a message being delivered to Gino's Italiano. The message will ensure that food is delivered to the law office of Bob Steffens at exactly 7 p.m. That will mean that his door is open when the man I've instructed to go and break his knees goes to fulfill his contract." "Very devilish," Mr. Sereph said, "but what does that have to do with anything?" "The duffel bag contains drugs that will be traced back to the law office in the building. The wife of Jim Pax will ensure that a rift forms between him and his sons, who are his partners. Bob Steffen will have his knees broken and will be unable to recover fully. All of this will ensure that Joseph Treadwell, of Treadwell, Gabe, and Droff, is one of the few practicing attorneys in the area when a certain high-profile case comes up next week. It will also place him in my debt and leave no way to trace any of this back to me." Mr. Sereph looked impressed, but not sold. It was time for the closer. "All this is very impressive, but still doesn't show me why I should hire you." "Of course not," Lucifer said. "You won't understand that until I sell you something you want." Mr. Sereph laughed for true then, and it sounded like fingernails on wind chimes. "Me? You think you have something that will turn my head? I admire your courage, Lucifer Jones, but I don't believe you have anything that will interest me." "We'll see," Lucifer said, leaning down so he could reach beneath the bench where Mr. Sereph sat. From beneath him, he took a box, a simple wooden box, but as he set it in his lap, he knew the old demon could sense something within it. It was something special, the first and only gift his mother had ever given him, except his life. He'd kept it since it had been mailed to him by someone at the adoption agency when he had turned 18. It was his most prized possession, and he knew it was just what he needed. "Did you know that the doctor handed my mother something on the day I was born? Something very special." "Oh?" Mr. Sereph asked, trying for disinterest, but finding it hard to maintain. "Yes, it was the only thing she had to remember me by for 17 years before her death. They said that a week before she died, she mailed it to my caseworker, telling me that it was my birthright and my inheritance. It's my most prized possession, and if you agree to hire me, I'll give it to you." Mr. Sereph swallowed loudly, his eyes boring into the box as he waited for it to be unveiled. Lucifer opened the box, and inside was a wonder. It was a black feather, the end forged into an ink pen, and it was the most beautiful thing that Lucifer had ever seen. He had sat in bed the night after receiving it and ran the feather over his chin, feeling its texture and hearing the words of the letter in a voice that he had never heard in life. "It's your birthright, your inheritance," the letter had said, and he had known it was very special. Mr. Sereph looked at the feather delighted and not bothering to hide it. He was like a child who receives exactly what he wants for Christmas, and now cannot believe that he's seen it made real. It was clear that he wanted to reach for it, but he seemed unable to just yet. Where did you get this?" he asked breathlessly. "My mother claimed I was holding it when she delivered me, and she claimed it was proof of my true patronage." When Mr. Sereph tried to reach for it, his long-fingered hands trembling, Lucifer closed the box with a snap. "What do you say?" Lucifer asked, offering him a hand. Mr. Sereph thought about it, clearly not used to being on this end of the deal, before shaking it with a smile and a deep belly laugh. "Welcome to Libra's talent, Lucifer Marvvelous Jones. I believe you will fit in very well here." Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining me for tonight's video. If you still feel like you could do with a little more spooky in your life, why not click on one of the videos that's appearing on your screen? If you're not subscribed, why not go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any of the stories we put on here? I make new videos 7 days a week, and I wouldn't want you to miss a one of them. So if you'd like to support the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe? Maybe hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the great stuff we do here. And of course, if you'd like to support the channel in a more financial way, you could always become a member on YouTube or on Patreon. Spooky Skeletons, that's my $5 members, always get their videos early, as opposed to in the evening. And we've got lots of other cool stuff that you can take advantage of. Just go down to Patreon and give it a look, or become a member on YouTube. Speaking of all of our wonderful patrons and YouTube members, let's go ahead and thank them right now. Thanks to Unicorn Hollow, our Spooky Ghost contributor. Thanks to our Spooky Skeleton contributors, Janice, Lee Kendall, and Saikat. Thanks to our Ghostly Reader contributors, Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Tyler Parker, Cinnamon Fox, and Sarah SAMR42. Thanks, guys. We just couldn't do the show without you. Again, if you'd like to support the show in a more monetary fashion, there are links below to Patreon, and you can just go to YouTube and click on membership, if that's something that interests you. There's also links to my latest book below if you'd like to go have a look on Amazon. It should show you the other books I've got as well, so why not go ahead and get the whole collection. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.